Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mount Panorama, Bathurst, for the final round of the Can-Am SimSport Summer Endurance Series presented by Wasabi and Ginger Dental Products. 5 rounds behind us, 90 minutes of racing ahead of us, and tonight 2 championships will be decided. GT3 on screen, Nikita arrives with an unofficial 12-point lead over Ben Grabo, but Ben may have the hottest driver in the series, or maybe the hottest driver in the series. Back-to-back victories in Imola and Londrina have turned what once looked like Nikita's clinched championship control into a fight that comes all the way down to the final round here at Bathurst. Ian Arnold remains mathematically in the picture as well, waiting to capitalize on any possible misfortune that happens to the 2 drivers ahead. Back in GT4, Dill Destroyer leads Joe Dirt by only 9 points. Dylan's been remarkably consistent all season, but Joe's victory at Londrina has brought this championship right down to the wire. Spectre and Pingu remain in the conversation behind them. At a place like Bathurst, nothing can be taken for granted. Because tonight, the championship contenders face perhaps their toughest challenge of the season. Across the top of Mount Panorama, there is virtually no margin of error. Concrete barriers on both sides, up the hill and down. 2 classes of traffic, championship pressure, pit strategy, and 90 minutes of a slog in the car is going to be an accomplishment on its own. 12 points in GT3, 9 points in GT4, 1 race remains, no more opportunities to recover. Tonight we crown 2 champions in one of the greatest racing circuits of the world. Welcome to Mount Panorama. Welcome to Bathurst. It's championship night for the CAS Summer Endurance Series. My name is Les. You can call me Cooper, Ryan, asshole, terrible, whatever you want to say. But I'm here, so excited to be here. This is going to be a great race. These guys always put on one heck of a show, and I don't foresee tonight being any different. Apologize for the late start as we jump in here for qualifying. Just unfortunately made a poor time decision for me and forgot that there was a race tonight. Got new parent brain. Sorry, had to get my notes here. And we've got Dill Destroyer up in the wall. This is what we were talking about here in the pre-race introduction. Look at the concrete on both sides of this track. And we'll ride on board with Dill Destroyer. He starts to free up a little bit here. But then you got concrete right here again, and it's very narrow and technical. It's going to make overtaking brutal. But Dill, looking to take the championship tonight in GT4. It is going to be a close fight all the way around. As we are now well into qualifying. 1 minute remains. Dylan might get another shot at a lap. Only time will tell. Ben Grabo currently to pole position in GT3. Only driver to complete a lap here. And I'm seeing people trickle out of new lobby. Okay. Good old Automobilista 2 and its technical problems. The stream is starting soon, Christopher. Thank you for calling me out on that. I'm glad somebody was here and I didn't have a stream starting soon broadcast all night. That was... That's why we pay you the big bucks. So, oops. Do they have the session up yet? I'm gonna have to tab out. Anyways, welcome. This is the finale round for the Summer Endurance Series. It's been good so far to watch. Bear with me, folks. I'm going to take this opportunity to set myself up a little bit better for success tonight. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Just trying to get some telemetry up on screen here. They're refiring the server here, so just bear with us here for just a moment. Whoops. Well, stand by just a moment. I'm going to take a quick bathroom break, and I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. Again, sorry about the hold up, folks. Just waiting on this session to open back up. Still not up. Hopefully everything's all right. Oh, hang on. Okay, sorry about that, folks. I just got a message from the man himself, so it should be up and running. There it is. I am aware we're on the BRB screen. I don't want to give their password away. All right. And we're back. Nikita, I totally apologize. I see that you were trying to type in YouTube, and for some reason I only saw Twitch, but now I've got it all up. Should be able to see if you're in the YouTube camp or in the Twitch camp. But it is back up. And we will be underway here in just a moment. I will go through the intro spiel again just to immerse you all. That's what you all come here for, right? Immersion. All right. I imagine we're going to go straight into qualifying, though I'm not positive. Yeah, looks like we did. So, time to put on my race broadcast. We're going to pretend that everything up to this point hasn't happened so that we can get into the race broadcast. I'm going to give you a moment of silence, and then we'll get rolling. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mount Panorama Bathurst for the championship finale of the Can-Am SimSport Summer Endurance Series presented by Wasabi and Ginger Dental Products. 5 rounds have brought us here. 2 championships remain undecided, and before we go racing tonight, there's still plenty of valuable points on the table in qualifying. GT3 arrives with a 12-point lead. Nikita in GT3 arrives with a 12-point lead over Ben Grabo. Ben coming to Bathurst carrying all the momentum after back-to-back victories at Imola and Londrina. With 3 points available for pole position, 2 for second and 1 for third, that championship margin could begin changing before the race even starts. Ian Arnold remains within striking distance as well, looking to keep himself in the fight headed into tonight's championship finale, 90 minutes here at Bathurst. In GT4, Dill Destroyer, the fight's even tighter, just 9 points separating him and Joe Dirt. Joe Dirt's victory last time out at Londrina, helping secure second of the championship, and with qualifying points available here as well, every 10th of a second matters before we even get the green flag tonight. There may be no more intimidating place to settle a championship than Mount Panorama. Finding speed here means attacking a circuit that gives almost no margin for error. Concrete on both sides of the track in many places, especially across the top of the mountain. One brush with the wall can ruin a championship lap, and tonight it may help decide the championship. 12 points in GT3, 9 in GT4, 3 bonus points available in each class right now. Before we decide the championship, we have to decide the grid. Welcome to Bathurst. Welcome to qualifying for the Can-Am SimSport Summer Endurance Championship. The finale starts now as we've got Dill Destroyer on screen right now. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to tonight's race. I am your host, Les Paul Obsession. You can call me Les. You can call me Ryan Cooper. You can call me that guy with a microphone. So excited to be here for what will inevitably be a fantastic finale to this series. These guys have put on one hell of a show all season long, and it comes down to one of the most iconic racetracks in the world, a 3.86-mile circuit running counterclockwise in direction and roughly 570 foot of vertical difference between the base and the summit. Huge part of what makes a lap here feel almost unlike anything else is another brush with the wall, as we talked about in that pre-race intro. It's so easy to just go too deep here in Bathurst. You see the concrete jungle, another graze of the wall there on the other side. Maybe potentially a little bit of desync on my end could be causing some of that, because he still seems to be driving straight. That second one at least looked like desync. A lot to be decided here. It's going to be super exciting to watch. But folks, something a lot of you may not know, this is not a permanent road course. Outside of racing, it's a public road. Out of the major events anyways, ordinary traffic drives up and down the mountain. The track originating back to 1938, constructed as a scenic road and hosted its first motorcycle race, including the Australian Grand Prix that same year. We watched Dill Destroyer try to put down his lap. Folks, qualifying is going to be tight. Nikita putting himself on pole, Red Nose jumping to P2, and Ben Grabo losing out on valuable championship points in this final round, but he will get another crack at it, as will Nikita, as will Red Nose. Soupy, CB, Vicnet, all those guys think are committed. No, there's still a few seconds left, so anybody that crosses the line now might still get a pass. And that is the end of official qualifying. So anybody that crosses the line now, their time is final. Currently, Joe Dirt leading the GT4 field, but Dill Destroyer hoping to have a cleaner lap this time to answer and protect that championship fight. Joe on a bit of a charge these last few rounds, having great results. But really, Dylan's been very consistent all season long, kind of been right there in the mix for wins and podiums. So really good consistency sometimes is all it takes to win a championship. And now you see he's using every bit of the track, but he's not biting the concrete so hard. It's exactly what you want to be seeing right now. Down the hill. And I just want to pull up the track map a little bit so you all can kind of see just how devious this track is. I mean, it really is just unforgiving. As the lights flash for Nikita. I'm sorry, not Nikita, Dill Destroyer. Nikita coming around to finish his lap. Ben Grabo just behind. Red Nose just behind. So we are going to jump to these guys and see what they've got. Nikita looking to keep the pole position clinched and further his likelihood of taking another championship home tonight at 201.483. Ben with an 02.379, and Red Nose dethrones him with an 02.151. So we now jump back to Joe Dirt, who is fixing to cross the line shortly after Dylan. What does Dill Destroyer have in the bag? 211.729, not enough to beat Joe's previous time. And a 210.327 will be the pole position for GT4. Something Fierce with a final jump to P4 with a 202.983, and that is qualifying done and dusted as we get ready for what is sure to be a hell of a race. All right, folks. A minute, 16 seconds now separates us from, I guess, the beginning of the formation. I imagine they're doing a formation lap. I know this is a really long lap, but I doubt they do a standing start. They've done a formation lap for the rest of the season, so. I've got to sneeze. Sorry. (16, 15 seconds now before the field is set to run. Nikita in pole position, Red Nose P2, and Ben Grabo P3 and GT3. Joe Dirt, Spectre, and Heel Toe Hero round out the top three in GT4. Dill Destroyer, your championship leader in class, mired back in fourth right now. And the field is now underway. Folks, field begins the long journey around Mount Panorama, and this may be the final quiet moment these drivers get tonight. 5 rounds, hundreds of laps, and an entire season have brought us to this point now. Just 90 minutes remain to decide 2 championships, both in GT3 and GT4. In GT3, as mentioned pre-race, Nikita carrying a 12-point advantage over Ben Grabo, but Ben arrives with all of the momentum after back-to-back victories, managing to capitalize on Nikita's unfortunate circumstances last time out, which didn't end up hurting him because he still finished second, but back-to-back victories is huge. In GT4, though, the margin is even smaller, with 9 points separating Dill Destroyer and Joe Dirt. And folks, Joe just trimmed that back by 3 points. We're now 6 points as they run between Dill Destroyer and Joe Dirt for the championship. And if Dylan can't find that pace, find that consistency tonight, that could be the championship wrapped up for him. He has got to find some results tonight and maintain that consistency. He's a little bit off the pace right now in qualifying, struggling here in Bathurst. And there's no races after tonight. This is the finale. No longer a reason to save anything for the following week. This is when you have to put it to the test. And what a track to settle a championship at. The concrete jungle up here in the mountain, Mount Panorama, stretching 3.86 miles around the Australian countryside. But the number hardly tells a story. From pit straight to the top of the circuit, these cars climb roughly 570 feet. And once they reach the mountain, the room for error virtually disappears. The cutting, the skyline, the S's, the dipper. One mistake through there, and the wall is waiting to claim you. Then comes Forrest's Elbow, and everything changes. Get the exit right, and you launch into Concord Straight. Nearly 1.2 miles of flat-out commitment before one of the biggest braking zones in the circuit at the Chase, and possibly one of the biggest braking zones in this championship. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about this place, when the racing's over, Mount Panorama goes back to being a public road. People live here. People have jobs here. They have homes and businesses around the circuit. On an ordinary day, you can drive these same roads yourself, but tonight they belong to the championship contenders. For 90 minutes, they'll have to manage the mountain, manage the traffic, manage strategy, and somehow manage the pressure, knowing exactly what is stake. 12 points between the leaders in GT3, 9 points separate the leaders in GT4. One final race as the GT3 field rounds the final corner. Nikita will bring us to green for the final race of the championship, and already Ben Grabo with a big lunge, 3 wide down the front straightaway. We are racing. Nikita falling back to third, and Ben Grabo seems to be yielding the position back on the inside of that first left-hand turn. And Red Nose lunges to the front with Nikita right in tow, just a half a second behind. Just a little bit of activity just behind these three, but nothing crazy, as now we go to the GT4 field, who should be preparing to go green. Joe Dirt leading the field to green in GT4. 2 Chevys on the front row, and we are racing both classes underway now here in Bathurst. Dill Destroyer trying to get an early lunge right there from the inside of row 2. Can he make his way up to P3 or even P2? He's already up a position, and now side by side with Spectre. Nikita's found his way into the lead up in GT3, and Ben Grabo trying to chase down Red Nose, your P2 driver from qualifying, but Nikita already taking the field to Gapplebee's, has opened up a half a second gap and continues to storm forward. Back at GT4, Joe Dirt has maintained the lead from Dill Destroyer, who has gotten around Spectre and is now up into P3, or P2, I'm sorry, and continues to chase down Joe Dirt, his championship rival. We have already seen some incredible racing, and we aren't even one full lap into this event. What a race we have on our hands tonight. Unfortunately, it does not seem to be that we have a second-place merchant on the grid tonight. Always a bummer to see him not make it. He's always in contention back here in GT4, and Joe Dirt starting to race a little bit defensively as he's starting to face some pressure from Dill Destroyer behind. But, folks, the pressure is key. If you make one mistake here, it is almost assuredly race over, as Dill Destroyer doing a great job capitalizing on the car ahead, doing everything he can to get around. GT4, folks, GT4 has probably been one of my most exciting championship fights to watch. These guys put on a show week in and week out. and it is an absolute treat to watch him as now the move comes for the lead. Side by side down one of the fastest straights on the calendar. Dill Destroyer doesn't get it done, hard on the brakes into the final corner, or one of the final complexes of corners, I apologize. And down the hill towards what is now the final corner. Dill Destroyer with a great first lap, gaining 2 positions on qualifying and continuing to charge through the field and hoping that he can rein in Joe Dirt, who just sits a car length ahead. Nikita already expanding his lead on the grid tonight. But folks, Nikita had a costly mistake last week out. That mistake could be exponentially worse here at Bathurst. He can't afford another incident-ridden race. He did have a great recovery, but now his previous P2 has become his drop round. He cannot afford another incident. Red Nose with a season best drive right now, sitting in P2, and Ben Grabo trailing just behind. The rest of the GT3 field is 5 seconds behind these guys, and they are all tangled up with each other. As Ian Arnold watching the battle ahead between Flavio Barros and Something Fierce, the 2 Corvettes rounding out the back of this grid, with Crazy Canuck and Chill Blast sitting a little further back. Potentially some issues there in that gaggle of cars as we now fan out almost 3 wide down the hill. Oh, and a little bit of contact there from Ian Arnold on Chill Blast. It looks like Chill Blast got, or I'm sorry, Flavio Barros got a little bit sideways on the throttle. The car stepped out and wiggled, and that caught Ian off guard a little bit there. Now some damage sustained on the Corvette behind, potentially from some contact. Nope, the car ahead looks still pretty clean, so we jump back to GT4. Dill Destroyer doing everything he can to try and maintain a short distance to his championship rival. Folks, we're already 9 minutes into this race, and I feel like so much has already happened. A little bit of a peak from Dylan, but not enough to get around through turn 1. These top 3 always seem to start to separate themselves. Heel toe hero Ian McClure is hanging on there just a little bit. I don't know if he's raced this season. I don't know that I've seen McClure all season long. Maybe it's just been not great tracks or great results for him, but I don't know that he's been hanging on to this top pack of guys here if he has been racing. Regardless, though, the lead of this field has also separated themselves from the rest of the field. See, there's your top 4 right there. I don't know what's going on over here with the grass clipping, but there's the rest of the GT4 field, or some of them. That's Sturhaus there. Johnshu Pingu and Kinetic Herb. Here they come. Dylan is doing everything he needs to be right there and ready for any sort of incident that might arise from Joe Dirt ahead. And folks, I hate to cut away from that, but the battle in GT3 for P4 and 5 is starting to heat up. We saw a little bit of a peak from Soupy there, but fortunately having to bow out of it, not having the room to make the pass. Up the hill we go, and a little bit wide from the number 77 Porsche machine, but not wide enough to cost him too much time. And we jump back to the battle in GT4. Nose to tail Dylan is right there, folks. He's just trying to find the opportunity to get around. And he chooses now. He's pulling the side draft on the Camaro. The number 35 AMG GT4 is trying to surge to the front of the field. Lights flashing, a little bit of a shoulder check there on Joe Dirt, and he's hung out wide, and this is not where you want to be here at Mount Panorama. Up the hill, and he's going to get shoulder checked back to the outside, and now Spectre's going to have a look on the inside, side by side with Dill Destroyer. Now we're in the very narrow confines of these concrete walls, and it's just going to take one misstep, and now Dill Destroyer went from P2 to P3 with Heel Toe Hero right on his heels. And a graze of the wall from Dylan. It's precisely what we're talking about. It just takes one tiny mistake and it can be costly, especially here because it's so easy to get out of alignment. And there he goes again into the concrete wall. That section has such a flow, and if you get out of step in just one spot, it starts to tumble. As now Dylan continues to try to find his way back forward. Another graze of the wall. And Ben Grabo now on red nose for the pass on the outside. This is for P2. As we're still drag racing up the hill, but finally Ben Grabo yielding the position back and deciding to make the pass at another time. Ben doing everything he can to maximize points. It is now or never tonight, folks. Checkers or wreckers. He has got to bring home a good result. But Nikita just seems unbeatable. As now Ben Grabo trailing off just a little bit from the McLaren ahead. Deep on the brakes. He is trying his best to get around this McLaren. That way back in the distance, by the way, is the tail end of the GT3 field. Through the final corner, Red Nose will continue to lead Ben Grabo one more lap. And Dill Destroyer and Spectre, the battle continuing for P2. Dill Destroyer getting back around the Camaro. Doing everything he can. Trying to close the gap back down on Joe Dirt. Folks, I gather that AMG is probably a little quicker than the number 9 Steam Camaro. But Joe Dirt doing a great job of making that Camaro as wide as possible. The rest of the top 4 in GT4 are like, it's a parade of cars. And then you have to go back nearly 10 seconds to find the rest of them. These guys have just opened up a massive gap on the rest of their class. Dill Destroyer starting to fall off a little bit from Joe Dirt. That gap's starting to open back up in favor of Joe Dirt. Spectre starting to have a look. Trying to see if he can set something up. But nothing to be had just yet. And Joe Dirt's loving this, folks. Watching the battle in his rearview mirrors, he knows that Dill's going to have to play some defense here soon, and that's going to cost him valuable seconds on the track. What does that do? That allows Joe Dirt to expand his lead further. And I believe Dill Destroyer's in the wall again, grazing the concrete. Apologize, folks. I thought I missed a crucial pass in this class, but I did not. I forgot what car I was looking at. But Dill Destroyer grazing the concrete wall again here on the mountain. I will note some of those wall slaps might be some desync on my part, but not all of them. I do believe that was a retirement that I just saw. Not sure. Dylan trying to hang on, but folks, Nikita has now caught up to the lap traffic of GT4. And is working his way through with ease. I believe that was John Shu behind him. It was. Red Nose down the hill. So we're 18 minutes into this race, and Nikita has opened up not a 1, not a 2, not a 3, but a 6-second gap over the rest of his class. Not even the rest of his class. That's just P2 in class. 6 seconds to Red Nose behind. Nikita continuing to charge. We're going to put the track map and the speedo on so you all can see. This is in kilometers an hour. You can also monitor the fuel. And he's just so surgically precise. I would have thought he for sure was going to hit the wall there, but he didn't. Oh, a little bit of a graze there, but based on the attitude of the car, I'd say that was definitely desync. 2/10 off his best lap thus far. He is flying, folks. Dill Destroyer has found his way back to the bumper of Joe Dirt. And it looks like he is going to take a big lunge, but it's not going to stick. And he lives to fight another day. But he's right on the bumper of Joe Dirt again as we get ready to do a drag race down the front straight and into turn 1. Joe Dirt's going to have to play defense from the championship leader, and Dill Destroyer with a beautiful pass up to the front of this field. Joe Dirt now going to have to try to answer down the long straight to the bottom of the hill. In the uphill charge, we're drag racing Mercedes and Camaro side by side. Who is it going to be into the next turn? The outside lane, very hard to make stick, but he's going to do it. Joe Dirt noses his way back forward and closes the door on Dill Destroyer, and now the battle is very close. And who do we have in the mix back there? Oh, that's a GT3 car. Sorry, I thought that was just another GT4 finding his way back through the field. But now Dill Destroyer is going to be fighting for his life to get back up front. And now you've got a GT3 of, I believe that's Chill Blast, that's trying to work his way through a battle for the top 4 positions in GT4. This is going to be absolutely chaotic. As Joe Dirt now begins to open his lead up. Inspector gets around Dill Destroyer, or almost side by side now, trapping the GT3 behind as we are too wide down the hill. Concrete on both sides, no margin for error. These guys are just cage matched tonight. Dylan doing everything he can to maintain that championship lead, and he does keep the position, but only just from Spectre behind in the Camaro with an angry GT3 coming through down the straight. Checking back in on chat, folks. Tactical Nuclear Pingu in the call here. Internet took a shit, then another ass. So that is who I saw retire. I am terribly sorry, man. That is a massive bummer. But now you get to watch one of the most exciting fights I've seen all season. The GT4s are just putting on a freaking masterclass in wheel-to-wheel racing, and it has been an absolute treat to watch, and it continues. You can tell, folks, that drivers are championship on the mind right now. They are doing everything they can to work their way forward. And I don't know if Dylan's done the math and figured that, okay, I need to be in first to win the championship, because if I could take second right now and just have a good points day, as we've got a drag race now between Ian McClure and Spectre back behind. McClure not able to make the pass stick. And Spectre will maintain P3 in the GT4 class. I feel bad for the folks in GT3 because I haven't spent much time with a camera on them, but folks, GT4 is just so damn good. Sorry, folks, had to wet the whistle a little bit. I was running out of moisture in my mouth. Don't clip that. Out of context, that could be strange. Throat was drying out. Losing my voice. So much talking. And folks, while we've been talking, Joe Dirt has expanded his lead and is now comfortably leading the GT4 field as he charges down the hill between the concrete walls. And Nikita, I don't know what else to say about this guy other than damn. Just absolute domination. Knowing well he had to do good tonight in the race to secure the championship. Mistake last time out cost him some unfortunate track time. I shouldn't say track time points, but it wasn't really a big loss because he recovered to P2 from being nearly a lap down, so it just kind of shows the caliber of the driver of the number 70 Kanzen Performance AMG. He is definitely from another dimensional plane. And I expect the next time we're out in the next championship we run, you'll be seeing this guy in victory lane a lot as he continues to pace so close to his fastest lap. Consistency is unbelievable. Red Nose leading Ben Grabo in P3. Something Fierce P4. Soupy will round out the top 5 in GT3. Is behind between Ian Arnold and Flavio Barros. We've got a little bit of a battle because of the lap traffic getting their way through the GT4 field. Vicnet, P8, Crazy Canuck, and P9 and Chill Blast will round out your GT3 field in 10th. Joe Dirt still commanding a lead over Dill Destroyer. Who's now facing pressure from another Camaro behind him. He continues to try to work his way forward, but folks, I don't know if the pace in that AMG has just kind of dropped off or what, but he's struggling to close that gap on Joe Dirt that he was able to close so easily just 10 minutes prior. Spectre sitting P3, Ian McClure P4, Sturhaus, John Shu, and Kinetic Herb round out the top 7 and the GT4 grid entirely. with, unfortunately, Tactical Nuclear Pingu, who has been in the YouTube chat, having retired due to internet issues. Condolences go out to Pingu. And folks, the championship leader overall and the race leader overall is behind the battle of GT4s. Now this presents an interesting opportunity for Spectre. If he can get on the back bumper of Dill Destroyer, can he use the GT3 of Nikita to kind of strong arm his way through? And folks, this is holding Nikita up. 6.5 seconds now. He's not going to want to waste much time. Is he now? Side by side with the GT4s. Spectre tries to use the slipstream to get around. He doesn't quite get it done, but it does close the gap down just a bit. Does he have the ability to strike now up the hill? Spectre is right there, folks. Oh, you hear that? Did you hear that engine rev up? That was the back wheels coming just enough off the ground to spin the rear axles. Razor's Edge is now, I think we're going to see a pass here soon as we go down the hill. Interesting, however. So we looked at your race leader, folks, and this is where we're going to kind of get into the nitty-gritty, talk strategy for a moment. I haven't done the math on how much fuel these guys are using per lap. But you see down here, this is their fuel amount on board in liters. This is 79.4 liters on board your race leader, Joe Dirt. Dill Destroyer sitting about 77.2, so pretty well in the window there. Here's where things get very, very interesting. Spectre with 51 and some change, about 51.5 liters of fuel. This was a deliberate short fill on this car to try to lighten the load in the tank. Heel Toe Hero behind, sitting right around 80 liters, you know. Jonshu, same way. Kinetic Curb, same way. Spectre tried to lighten his car with fuel load. I'm expecting these guys have crunched the numbers and they'll have to pit at some point. Like I said, I don't know the fuel number right off the cuff. But Spectre is running half as much fuel as these guys. He will have to box sooner than the rest of the grid, so it'll be a massive overcut. Question is, will it work? As now Red Nose is in the pit for damage, it seems. He has gone around and sustained damage. There's no rear wing on the back of that McLaren, and that promotes Ben Grabo to P2. And Something Fierce is hot on his heels in P3. Doing a great job here. In the BMW is the number 96. Oh, we've got a little bit of... Oh, the GT4s are getting just absolutely bullied out here in between. The GT3 field charging through, and Ian McClure has been pounded into the concrete wall. Just not enough room for three cars to be fighting for position. And unfortunately, Heel Toe Hero caught the short end of that stick. And now Something Fierce trying to charge his way through as we catch P2, P3, and P1. I don't know why I named them off in that order, but the top three, and oh my goodness, what a maneuver. Spectre trying to use the GT3 to force his way through, but he didn't realize there's another GT3 right there, but he's gonna try again. The slipstream not strong enough to get him through. But Something Fierce side by side with Ben Grabo as they come up on the leader of the GT4 field. Something Fierce closing the door on Ben and getting the position, and now charging forward in the GT3 class. What a battle that was. Oh, and a very late braking from your driver in the number 96 BMW. I imagine there was a heart-in-throat moment behind the wheel of that number 9 Steam machine. But everybody made it through that race unscathed, except for Heel Toe Hero, who kind of got hip-checked into the wall. A little bit of damage on board the number 55 Camaro, but he still seems to be driving in the straight line. And oh, that's something fierce around up the hill. He must have been side by side with Ben Grabo, and what a costly mistake. Rear arrow gone on that BMW, and here comes Ian Arnold with what is sure to be an easy pass on the massively wounded BMW ahead. Downforce absolutely critical here at Mount Panorama. Ian playing it very conservatively here, not wanting to get too close and timing the pass right. He's smart, knowing that it's going to be very tricky to keep that car ahead, pointed the right way. He doesn't want to be roped into any sort of incident that might arise. I expect when we drop to the bottom of the mountain and hit a massive straight here in about 3 or 4 corners, he will be making the pass. Something Fierce doing a stellar job of driving that car with no rear arrow. Yeah, completely unreserved. When the opportunity came that time, he went around and took it. I believe that was possibly Canuck into the wall. But Ian Arnold now in P3. Something Fierce, I imagine, will be diving to pit lane. He does. So Soupy and Vicnet will make their way around. I imagine Crazy Canuck will get around. I don't know if Red Nose will get around him. Nikita continuing to cruise along in the overall lead here in GT3. Joe Dirt continues to lead the GT4 field, but the gap has definitely shrank to Dill Destroyer behind. All right, folks, keep an eye on Spectre 01 here, down to 42.9 liters of fuel. We're going to do a nice little fuel calc for you all and see where he lands on the fuel number per lap, because he is absolutely going to have to pit before the rest of these guys. Dill Destroyer making his presence known. The driver ahead. Race leader Joe Dirt in class. Oh, and they fan out. Dill Destroyer opening the door for Spectre. Doesn't quite get it done, but now Spectre is hot on his heels. Can he make the move early on the brakes for the Camaro? Tries to switch him under. Doesn't line it up just right, and great run off the corner from Spectre. Or from Dill Destroyer, I apologize. So we now have our starting point for the fuel per lap. Ian Arnold in for what I presume is... Oh, we have a safety car. We have a safety car. Red Nose, I believe, is our cause for the safety car. And this might be a golden opportunity for Ian Arnold if he can get out before Nikita crosses the line. And I believe that'll be easy. Ian Arnold is out and ahead of the safety car. This, folks, is critically important because I believe that was a scheduled stop. I believe he stopped with intent, not for damage. I could be wrong, but the stop wasn't... It was a little long, but if he can make it the rest of this race on the fuel he has on board, he could be sitting very pretty when the rest of the guys in front of him dive in for their stops. Nikita taking the opportunity to pit now. Under yellow, Ben Grabo following suit. Both of these guys playing chess at 260 kilometers an hour. You see what Yummy Soupy does here in the number 77 Porsche. He's given the opportunity. Joe Dirt and Dill Destroyer. Dill Destroyer side by side, not supposed to be passing. I think he's just playing some games. But do either of these guys pit? Dill Destroyer into the pit lane, Spectre into the pit lane, and Joe Dirt with a near fake out dives into the pit lane. This was real racing, far past the pit commit line, but that's okay. This is sim racing, and everybody made it through clean and happy. Is now the GT4 field all piling in for stops. Topping off fuel, possibly put some new shoes on. And the safety car will be leading the field to green here in just a moment. Folks, while pit stops are underway, while the safety car is out, I'm going to take a quick break, rest my voice. Man, what a race we've had. I mean, it's first safety car of the season, too, which is actually bonkers to me, so... One moment. But yes, I'm going to take a moment here. The championship finale has just taken another dramatic turn here at Mount Panorama. Red Nose out in the back of the field after heavy damage. Actually, he might be out. No, he's not out. In a crash. For the first time tonight, the safety car has been called with just under 50 minutes remaining, or just over 50 minutes remaining. Whatever gaps these drivers had built are gone. The field will bunch back together. Strategy comes back into play, and with both GT3 and GT4 championships still hanging in the balance, we're effectively hitting the reset button. Here at Bathurst, we'll take advantage of the caution to step aside, rest my voice, and when we return, we'll get you caught up on the championship picture and prepare for what could be a wild restart here on the mountain. You're watching the Can-Am SimSport Summer Endurance Series presented by Wasabi and Ginger Dental Products. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I apologize, folks. I thought we had more yellow running than we did. We're back. I apologize to all the folks back on Twitch. There is an ad break going on right now. Oh, we do have an extra lap of caution, so I am going to rest my voice. I'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Mount Panorama, where the complexion of tonight's championship finale has changed completely. We remain under the final lap of the safety car following a heavy crash for Red Nose 58. With roughly 50 minutes remaining, the field has been brought right back together. Looking at GT3, this is exactly what we wanted to see coming into tonight. Championship leader Nikita leading the race and Ben Grabo directly behind him in second, separated on the road by virtually nothing going into this restart. 12 points separated them entering Bathurst, and now the two drivers are fighting for this championship and will take the restart first and second. Ian Arnold currently running fifth and remains a part of the championship equation as well. GT4 is just as intriguing, with Heel Toe Hero 112 currently leading the class, but immediately behind, actually Heel Toe boxed, I apologize. Immediately behind are the two championship protagonists, Joe Dirt in second and Dill Destroyer in third, now provisional first and second, entering tonight separated by only 9 points. And this caution has put them right back together for the second half of this race. The gaps are gone, championship contenders are together, and with 50 minutes of racing remaining here at Bathurst, both titles are still there for the taking. Folks, the GT3 is coming down the hill and approaching the final corner. Welcome back to the mountain. Welcome back to Bathurst. Welcome back to Cass. Welcome back to the LPO network. Hope you're enjoying tonight's race as we get ready to go green again. Nikita brings the field to the green flag, and the GT3s are back underway. And already side-by-side, hip check and shoulder check there from the Corvettes behind. I believe that was Soupy, or not Soupy, that was Something Fierce and Ian Arnold. Ian really trying to strong-arm his way to the front of the field. Nikita leading the field to green and opening his lead up to half a second. And Joe Dirt maintaining the lead in GT4, but now Dill Destroyer with a beautiful opportunity to close that gap down and try to get the position as he goes outside, but a defensive move from Joe Dirt. One might argue a block, but no blocking here. Good defensive maneuver, keeping Dill Destroyer behind. Nikita already driving away from Ben Grabo, who's trying his best to track down the championship leader, but a half a second before we've even gotten a quarter of the way through the lap. It's going to be hard to chase down the championship leader, who has had such a commanding drive this evening. Ian Arnold up to P3 after strong-arming his way through on that restart. Something Fierce right back in the mix after spinning out and losing the rear wing. That safety car really kind of saving his bacon and giving him a second life as the field behind continues to charge down the mountain, and Dill Destroyer continues to try and put the moves on Joe Dirt. He's going to catch a nice chunk of slipstream here on the straight, but it's a very aggressive brake zone as we're now side by side. Fender to door into the brake zone. Who is going to be braver on the brakes? Joe Dirt goes through the kink. They're still side by side on the apex, and the advantage to Dill Destroyer back to the lead of this field, but can he hold off your pole sitter and current championship runner-up in the number 9 Steam Camaro, who is right there and waiting? Dill Destroyer now with clean air ahead of him. Can he capitalize and open that race lead? As now Heel Toe Hero trying to make the moves on Spectre 01 behind. Doesn't manage to make it stick, but Dill Destroyer might finally be leading the laps that he has craved leading so long this evening. If he can just keep the car pointed the right way and not graze the wall, he might be able to drive away from the field. There's been so much pace behind this GT4 AMG. He's just not been able to stretch its legs as he's been chasing down somebody on the track. Two AMGs in the GT3 field, battling for 8th. Crazy Canuck and Chill Blast. We're looking at Crazy Canuck right now in the number 32 AMG GT3. Chasing down the Sun Energy machine of Chill Blast. Ben Grabo already losing sight of the championship leader ahead, who's opened up a gap of nearly 2 seconds in the span of a lap and 2/3. Absolute brilliant stuff from Nikita. And if you're Nikita, folks, all you're doing is trying to keep tonight's race clean as we now go side by side between Something Fierce and Ian Arnold. Beautifully done from the BMW, but I don't know if Ian Arnold's done just yet. If he gets to run off this little chicane here, he could still be in contention for a pass on this final corner, but I don't think it's going to happen. He just doesn't have the power behind him in that Corvette. And that's going to be another position gain for Something Fierce. Back up to P3 after the misfortune he encountered, charging up the hill, chasing down Ben Grabo, who now sits in front of him in P2. Once again, the battle for P2 between these two drivers will be on here shortly if he can keep Ian Arnold behind. Back behind, it looks like we have Flavio Barros getting around Vicnet in the Corvette here. Audi over Corvette. We've got a drag race. That outside lane, it is so hard to make a pass stick, but he gets it done. Running a little wide and into the wall, though. Like I said, folks, so difficult to pass on that outside lane. You just catch so much grit on the track, and you get pulled into that concrete wall, especially when you get up over the apex. But Flavio Barros making it stick after a little brush with the wall and continues ahead, promoted to P6. Vicnet down to P7. Joe Dirt has fallen down almost another position as he now battles Spectre for position. Your pole sitter led the vast majority of the laps so far, and now down in P2 facing massive pressure from the Camaro behind. Can he hold him off? Spectre doing a great job of applying pressure and dealing with the pressure behind from Heel Toe Hero. And Dill Destroyer goes wide and into the dust. Mistakes that he cannot be making at this stage in the race if he wants to continue to lead this championship finale and bring home the title in GT4. Oh, a little bit of a wiggle there from the AMG GT4 ahead. And the top four in GT4 have once again separated themselves from the rest of the class and are having their own race with each other tonight. Joe Dirt right there now on Dill Destroyer, and he's going to make the move side by side with Dill Destroyer down the front straight. He's going to have the desired line on the entry to turn 1. Dill Destroyer with a bit of a shoulder check there saying, no sir, not yet. You're going to have to muscle me out of the way. Joe Dirt bowing back into lane, but now Spectre on his outside with the GT3 traffic. We're 3 wide coming down the hill and on the approach to the incline. GT4 fanned out massively. Spectre on that outside lane, we've seen it stick, but we've also seen it bite back. He makes it work, but he loses a position to Heel Toe Hero, who's now up to P3 in class. And still with Red Nose sitting behind in that McLaren. It is about to get very, very interesting here in GT4. Is Dill Destroyer doing everything he can to hold off his championship rival, who is ready to make a move. He's all over the back bumper of that AMG, and here he goes side by side down the concrete jungle, but he's going to bow out of it and let the race take its course and try to make the move elsewhere. Little bit of a wiggle from Dylan, and he's almost into the wall again. 2 laps in a row now. We've seen that very same spot bite the GT4 AMG. And now we've got a train of cars charging down the straight. And folks, I apologize, but I have missed a pass for P2 and GT3, but this is intense right now in GT4. We've got a GT3 trying to get through the battle for the lead as they're all checked up, and there goes Red Nose off and into the gravel again. Roped into a battle that he had no part of, could not get away from it, and has retired to pit lane. Heartbreak for the driver who qualified P2 and GT3 class. So much action happening in such a small amount of track, and it was inevitable that somebody was going to end up getting bitten. Something Fierce has passed Ben Grabo for P2. That is the pass I mentioned I missed earlier. And Ian Arnold taking some pressure from Soupy in the Porsche behind. A great job holding him off, but the pressure is mounting. I think the timing and scoring's messed up again because it almost looked like there was a battle for P2, but there was not. Soupy really trying to do something to make the move happen on Ian Arnold. We've got the kink ahead. He's going to try to make it move. Side by side, almost causing an incident, but there he goes off and into the runoff. The number 77 Porsche is off, and Ian Arnold will maintain the position. Soupy continues to try to recover. Unfortunate for the driver of the Porsche, as he is back and underway. The fight rages on, but Dill Destroyer starting to open up a little bit of a gap on Joe Dirt, perhaps finding some crucial consistency. And Soupy now in pit lane. Didn't think he had much damage incurred there, but possibly. Spectre trying anything he can on Joe Dirt. While Joe's trapped in P2, he's going to try to make a maneuver. Folks, the driver that leads this race kind of has it a bit of an easier time. You don't have to worry about other people's brake points. You don't have to worry about dirty air, you know. The car just handles better when you're up at the front of the field. It's not just better to lead because you want to lead. It's better to lead because it's better for the car. And Dill Destroyer definitely leading, but only just, with Joe Dirt now trying to strike on the outside. Folks, this uphill turn is so tricky to do it on the outside. But Joe's not done yet. Look at the lunge on the inside. My word, the elbows are coming out back here in GT4. These guys are not holding anything back. Championship on the line. And Dill Destroyer now knowing, okay, the guy behind me is ready to make a move. If I open the door even so much as half an inch, he's going to shove his nose through and make it stick. Joe Dirt trying it again on the outside, but he doesn't make it stick. Down the hill through the chicane. This has been a tricky sector for your championship leader. But Joe Dirt all over the back bumper of the AMG. Can he make it stick now? Defensive line there from Dill Destroyer. Saw a potential maneuver coming and held him off. And now, a very tricky sector of the track to defend on, as the Camaro is tucked right up behind him. Here comes the lunge. Big defensive maneuver, wide on the kink. Hard into the brake zone. The Camaro will stay P2 for the time being. Dill Destroyer doing an excellent job defending his rival in the championship, with more GT3 traffic coming through. Folks, the timing of that could not be worse for this GT3 driver. We've seen GT3 traffic get in the mix of this GT4 race, and it has just been chaos every single time. I don't foresee this being any different. Folks, I don't know. I have a hunch. Maybe it's just coincidence that good old Dill Destroyer might be listening to us. Seems that every time I start talking about him or praising him, I see those little lights flash. Maybe it's just wishful thinking, but amusing nonetheless and fun to think about. Complete sidebar and completely unrelated to what we're seeing. But now, this is the worst part of the track that you really want to get trapped behind slower class cars. Because it's so narrow, it's so confined. And when you've got a tight battle up ahead of you, I mean, this is essentially a four-way battle for the lead. Any one of these guys makes a mistake, and the guys behind him are going to pounce. There's a blanket of like half a second over 4 cars. So really, you don't want to get in the middle of this as a GT3 car. And if I am Soupy behind this group, right, I realistically, I don't think I'm in contention for much position gaining. Incident cost him a lot of time. He stopped, I think, for routine stop because he wasn't in pit lane very long. And he's only made 1 stop, so I'd imagine that was a routine stop. However, you got to play your cards right. If you want to finish the race, you wait until the right time to get by these guys, because this is, without question, a very intense fight. Brilliant defense from your championship leader in the GT4 category. And off goes Ian Arnold. How did that happen? It's like he completely missed the brake zone and fired it off into the gravel. Always seems to be when GT3 traffic gets around GT4s that we start to see chaos ensue. And tonight is no different. And safely now, Soupy gets around, and Joe Dirt trying to use that GT3 traffic to his advantage, but another hip check from Dill Destroyer. Oh, and that's into the wall for your pole sitter, who falls now back down to P3 behind Spectre, and I imagine there's probably some fuming behind the visor of that number 9 Steam Camaro, doing everything he can to try and race clean and getting hip checked and shoulder checked at every single passing opportunity. Be interesting to see if he holds back any when he gets back to the front of this field. And folks, I say when. Joe Dirt has shown incredible pace, and now Spectre putting the pressure on Dill Destroyer. It is getting absolutely zany here on the mountain in this championship. Folks, there is a GT3 race going on right now. As a matter of fact, I think the timing and scoring's bugged because it looked like this was a very tight fight, and it's not. But let me give you the quick recap right now. Nikita obviously leading by years. Something Fierce got around Ben Grabo for P2 a little while after the restart. Ben Grabo sitting P3 in the race. Ian Arnold P4 after a very bold move on the restart. Got him up to P3, and then he kind of lost a little bit of time back down to P4. Flavio Barros in P5, Chill Blast and Crazy Canuck P6 and 7. Vicnet in P8, and Soupy, who just got through the back of the GT or the front of the GT4 field, rounds out your GT3 class in P9. I say quick recap because we're going to go back to the battle in GT4, which has actually simmered down. Joe Dirt has gotten back around Spectre. But man, there's 2 classes on the field tonight, but it's just so hard to pay attention to one of them because the fight here in GT4 is just insane. Spectre with the wipers on, not sure why. I don't see any rain. Perhaps they just came on by mistake. A lot of cloud coverage. Up there they go. Maybe Spectre's listening too. Field Destroyer continuing to lead the GT3 field. But he's starting to face pressure again from Joe Dirt, who is now hot on his heels. Coming through this mountain pass, this is always a tricky spot for the championship leader. He seems to struggle a little bit. But he maintains the lead once more. He's really kind of hampered down that section and kind of got it figured out, I think. These last handful of laps, he's doing a good job of just maintaining that lead, and that's exactly what he needs to do. He's just got to hold off Joe Dirt, which I say just, it's going to be a challenge. Joe is rapid in that Camaro, and without question is probably a little frustrated with all the passing opportunities he's had that have ended in being shoulder checked. Through the final corner again. And Dill Destroyer continues to lead, but only just. What a great battle we've got in GT4 so far, folks. Just absolutely stellar stuff, I must admit. But we are inside the final half hour at Mount Panorama, and both championships remain very much undecided. GT3 Nikita continues to lead here at Bathurst with Something Fierce second, and Ben Grabo still in third. It's going to take a miracle for him to move up to the front. Grabo came into tonight with just 12 points behind Nikita, but with every lap that ticks away, we're getting closer to knowing who will leave tonight's Mount Panorama with the championship title. Ian Arnold running fourth, still waiting for an opportunity if anything happens ahead of him. And now we've got the pass for Joe Dirt on Dill Destroyer in P4, or P3, I'm sorry, GT4. P1 and GT4 goes back to Joe Dirt. Dill Destroyer worked his way to the front of the class and just lost it with title rival Joe Dirt passing him for the lead. 9 points separated them entering tonight, and now they run 1-2 with less than a half hour remaining in the Summer Endurance Series. 26 minutes to go, 25 minutes to go. Two championships still hang in the balance, and Mount Panorama will be waiting to have its final say. We'll take our final break of the night, and when we return, we'll be back with you all the way to the checkered flag here at Bathurst. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Mount Panorama. And if you stepped away with us, GT4 has absolutely exploded into life. Joe Dirt had taken the lead from Dill Destroyer just before break, with Dill fighting back and reclaiming the top spot. But since then, the order has changed again. Spectre now leads GT4 with Joe Dirt running second, and championship leader Dill Destroyer falling to third. With just under 23 minutes remaining, the championship rivals are separated by only one position on the racetrack. Meanwhile, in GT3, Nikita continues to protect his 12-point championship advantage over Ben Grabo as the laps continue to tick away. This is it. Less than 23 minutes remain in the season. Both championships undecided, and the Mountain delivering exactly what the finale we hoped for. Welcome back to Bathurst. We're still with you all the way to the checkered flag. I'm Les. You're tuned in to the LPO network for the Can-Am SimSport Summer Endurance Series, where, folks, 21 seconds and a half remain, and we have another safety car, presumably for... Oh, I don't see anybody significantly off the pace. Appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. What a race we've had so far in this finale here at Mount Panorama. It's everything you could have asked for out of a series finale. Honestly, thought it was a very bold decision going to Bathurst, but here we are in one of the most exciting races. I am your host, Les Paul Obsession. You're tuned into the LPO Network. This is the Can-Am SimSport Summer Endurance Series. Folks, we are in the final 20 minutes, just about, of the series finale. And folks, this is huge for everybody in the GT3 field. Championship leader Nikita is being brought back to Earth. A 7, 8, 10, 117 second lead, whatever it was, has been absolutely kneecapped down to fractions of a second. Once we get under green, it is anybody's game. Spectre racing to catch up to the GT4 field. Soupy is the only car that's way off the rest of the grid, but I think that's just because he had his incident. I don't think he's sustained any damage. I'm not sure who else it could be. Chill Blast. Chill Blast is no longer on the grid. Looking at my external telemetry tools here. So Chill Blast is retired. So I apologize, we missed that incident. It happened while we were on break. And unfortunately, MS2 does not have a replay function, so I can't go back and instant replay what we missed. But I do believe with the safety car returning this lap, I believe to pit lane, we will have one more manual formation lap where we will stack the grid up, get back markers out of the way, which I don't believe there are any back markers in each class. They're just probably going to stack up the GT4s and move them back. Heel Toe Hero is a lap down from the rest of the GT4 field, I believe. As is Sturhaus, Jonshu, and Kinetic-Herb. Lights are out on the safety car. He will return to pit lane, but I don't believe we'll be going green just yet. Looks like we're going to have another manual formation lap. We do. The GT4 will race around and try to catch up to the back of the field as the rest of the field goes at safety car speed. Currently watching championship leader Nikita, who is about to get pounced. And folks, while we are under the safety car, let's take a look at the championship picture, shall we? GT3 Nikita, as we've established, came into tonight's race with a 12-point lead over Ben Grabo. And right now, Nikita leading the race and Grabo third. That puts Nikita firmly in control. Grabo needs positions, and he needs them on this restart. There is no question about it. It is do or die when the green flag drops at the end of this safety car lap. He has got to find his way to the front. That being said, GT4 is much tighter. Dill Destroyer entered tonight leading Joe Dirt by 13 points, but right now, Joe runs second while Dill sits third, and Spector's leading the class. Joe's doing everything he needs to, but he needs to create a bigger gap if he wants to overturn the championship deficit. So we'll go green with about 15 minutes left in Bathurst, so both championships still very well alive. We go back to green, every position could change who walks away from the mountain with the hardware. But folks, the restart that I really, really want to watch is going to be this one right here. Nikita is gonna be, he has got nothing but a big, bright, glowing red target painted on his back. This is gonna be when Ben needs to make the move. He's got to get around something fierce. He's got to get around Nikita. He has got to put some results on this restart. This is where the championship could be decided right now. When Nikita runs to green, he needs to be ready to pounce. Do what Ian Arnold did in the last restart. Just freaking split and go wide. As the green flag falls, Nikita leads the field, and Ben does exactly what I expected he should. He goes wide, but it's not enough. And Nikita continues to lead the field, and back behind, Spector leads the field of GT4s to green and continues to lead Joe Dirt. And Dill Destroyer hanging on just behind. But unfortunately, backmarker traffic in the GT4 field has caused this battle to get mired in blue flagged cars. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Something fierce continuing to lead Ben Grabo as they tried to chase down Nikita, but Nikita is just absolutely untouchable. And the fight in GT4 has continued to heat up. Now Joe Dirt trying to use the backmarking traffic to his advantage as he gets on the inside of Spector, gets shuffled to the outside of the apex, and will fall back in line. And he'll get another opportunity with lap traffic continuing to remain ahead of these guys. This restart really making the fight interesting for Joe Dirt. Can he get around Spector? He's going to try. It doesn't make it stick, and he's got pressure from behind in the form of championship leader Dill Destroyer, who might try to make a very bold move. Right now, right now, as they run, I believe he comes home champion. But if Joe Dirt gets the lead and Dill Destroyer maintains third, that could very well be the nail in the coffin for Dylan's championship outlook. As now Dylan trapped behind the two Camaros who are side by side into the final corner. And a little bit of a shoulder check back from Joe Dirt on the AMG. Drag race down the front straightaway and into turn one. Joe Dirt will maintain position and get back to the lead. And Spector now facing pressure behind from Joe Dirt and Dill Destroyer. I apologize, Joe Dirt did not get the pass complete. We've now got another nose-to-tail drag race. And there's a hood. Did somebody crash already? Maybe that was just leftover debris from the last safety car, but now Dill Destroyer is on the outside of Joe Dirt, but he's not going to get the pass complete. He tries to switch it back. It doesn't stick. Folk coming down to the wire on not just tonight's race, but the championship as a whole. This is the fight for the championship, not just tonight's victory. Joe Dirt has to get to the lead of this race, and he goes wide and into the concrete. Could have been desync, though, because the car still seems to be driving in a straight line, and Dill Destroyer runs wide off the apex. And that gives Joe a moment to breathe and try to catch his breath and gain back the precious seconds lost. To Spectre ahead. What an absolute banger of a race we've had so far. Let me do some number crunching here real quick. So actually, folks, I'm doing my math right. The bonus point from qualifying could be enough to take the championship for Joe Dirt. If he continues to stay ahead of Dill Destroyer, I believe. Okay, so I've crunched the numbers, folks. There's a reason we've left the camera on Dill Destroyer and Joe Dirt. If Dill Destroyer finishes ahead of Joe Dirt tonight, he wins the championship in GT4. If Joe Dirt finishes ahead of Dill Destroyer, he leaves here crowned champion of GT4. This is quite literally a race for the second step of the podium and the top step of the class in the championship. So, with 8 minutes left in this race, Dylan has got to find some last-minute speed, a last-minute stroke of pace, because the Camaro is opening up the gap. And the fight here in GT4 has started to simmer down after what has been an absolute burner. And I might be seeing the leading contributor to this fight seeming to quiet down. Folks, the deficit of fuel on board these cars is absolutely immense. we cross the line, we'll have roughly 3 laps left, give or take. I don't know how much fuel these guys are using per lap, but the fuel on board this GT4 AMG is noticeably lower than that of his opponents in the Camaro, with Spectre and Joe Dirt both sitting at about 30 or north of 30 liters on board the tank. So these guys are probably not worried about fuel. If they are, it's not quite to the extent of Dylan here in the back. But if he can find a way to get ahead, it would be huge. But I just don't know, man. I really don't. See if we can ride on board, see if we hear much in the fuel saving. Oh, and he wiggles, and he's almost around. And that might be the moment right there that seals the deal for Joe Dirt. Doesn't sound super short-shifted. Maybe a little. But I'm not hearing a big coast phase either, so... At this point, Joe just has to bring it home in one piece. Oh, and he doesn't! He doesn't! Dill Destroyer might have the opportunity to take the championship if he doesn't get roped into it, and Joe Dirt just a little bit too much curb. And he tries to get right back onto the racetrack and save his championship fight, but that was incredibly crucial to the title. Folks, we mentioned it at the beginning of this race. I've mentioned it throughout. You cannot make a mistake on that section of the track. It will bite, and it has. Joe Dirt now sustaining massive damage to the front of that number 9 Camaro, and that might be his title hopes up in smoke. As Dill Destroyer reclaims P2, and thus, I believe, if my math is correct, the championship win, if he can remain in P2 for another 4 minutes or so. Ben Grabo seems to have had an issue as he has fallen off the podium and into P4. Folks, I apologize, especially if you're in the GT3 class. I've not paid a lot of attention to you all tonight. It's just so hard to do when there is all of this happening in the GT4s. What an insane turn of events. And Joe Dirt now just has to try, and he's hoping and praying for some sort of incident to happen ahead. A bobble, a twitch, too deep into a corner, whatever, so that he can try to take his spot back and thus the championship lead. What an upset. Absolutely insane, as now Vicnet has retired from tonight's event. Ben Grabo up the inside of Heel Toe Hero on this final complex of corners as we charge down to the final corner. Trying to chase down Flavio Barros in the Audi, who seems to have sustained some damage, but not a significant amount. And folks, Soupy is back in the mix on the lead lap and just behind Ben Grabo and Flavio Barros. So still potential podium if these two have a hiccup. Nikita is just doing what Nikita does best, opening the gap exactly how he needs to for almost 5 seconds since the restart about 12 minutes ago. and just continues to open the gap even more. Something Fierce currently sitting P2, 4 seconds behind, and Flavio Barros and Ben Grabo with a small battle for P3, final step of the podium. Though I think timing and scoring is incorrect. I don't think it's as close as it says up here. But Ben's definitely trying to reclaim that final podium spot. Dill Destroyer continues to lead Joe Dirt, but Spectre cruising for the win tonight. Doing a great job keeping his nose clean, staying out of trouble, making the right strategy call early on, and being smart. That is, it's such a crucial thing. It sounds easy, but when you're in the heat of a battle and you're focused on the cars ahead, it is so hard sometimes to think clearly. And Spectre doing a good job of just making the right decisions at the right times, keeping the car out of trouble, keeping it out of the wall. No major damage. A little bit of rubbing here and there, but sustainable. And Dill Destroyer continues to lead and hopes to maintain the position and take the championship lead, or take the championship win in what was almost assuredly going to be a shoe-in for Joe Dirt in the championship. And this, the fight for the final spot on the podium overall. Nikita on what I believe is the final lap. Well on his way through the final lap. Something Fierce behind in the number 98 Turner Motorsports BMW M3 GT3. Trailing a little ways behind him is P3 Flavio Barros, the final guy on the podium tonight. And hoping for any sort of misstep is Ben Grabo in P4 in the number 98 Aston Martin. And Soupy, the number 77 Porsche, is just trailing behind. Quite a bit of attrition here tonight at Bathurst. I think we've lost 4. So it has been pretty tricky. Crazy Canuck is P6. Ian Arnold P7. Massive damage on board the number 3 Corvette there. Surely a frustrating evening for the driver in P3 in the championship. Spectre leading your GT3 or your GT4 field with brilliant drive in the number 66 Kobe Tools Camaro, and Nikita has taken the lead, or taken the checkered flag, and that is championship done and dusted. Something Fierce in P2. Flavio Barros will cross the line. P3 and Soupy. P5 behind Ben Grabo's P4. Crazy Canuck will cross the line here, taking P6. And Ian Arnold mercifully finishing this round out P7. Heel Toe Hero will cross the line in P4 for the GT4s. And Spectre, as I was saying, the number 66 Kobe Tools Camaro. What a great drive. We haven't talked a lot about him specifically, but just massive consistency and keeping out of trouble, which is, I mean, honestly, the keeping it out of trouble is 98% of being successful here at Bathurst. It is such a challenging racetrack that if he can do that, you'll get a result like this as he comes through the final complex on the run down to the final stretch and into the final turn. Your GT4 class winner tonight here at Mount Panorama, Spectre 01 and the number 66 Kobe Tools Camaro. Trailing behind him quite a ways, and taking the GT4 championship is Dill Destroyer. Massive drive from Dill, and Joe Dirt with a late race incident takes P3. in the championship. Haas on the run down to the final corner with John Shu in tow. He'll cross the line with a top 5 finish tonight in the Audi R8 GT4. John Shu in the Ginetta GT4 will take 6th. And Kinetic Curb will cross the line in the Aston Martin for 7th in GT4. What a finale, folks. Just absolutely unpredictable. Hang on, I'm going to try to do some number crunching while I have you all here. Okay. One moment. Okay. One moment while we crunch the numbers here. Without question, though, Nikita will be the overall champion. So, in light of that, that is not the livery I selected. There we go. Okay. So, after all that is said and done, folks, I'm using AI, full disclosure, for the championship standings, so I apologize if it's incorrect. If you are in CAS and you have the championship standings and you go, this doesn't sound right, it's probably because I'm doing this with quick maths and pictures. So, after tonight's unofficial results, Nikita comes out of this round with 317 points as your champion. Ben Grable will take P2 in the championship with 293 points. Ian Arnold will take 274 points in P3. And Something Fierce, 255 points in P4 in GT3 championship. It just seems to be giving me the top 4, so I apologize for that. Dill Destroyer will come away GT4 champion with 309 points. Joe Dirt crosses the line tonight. Again, these are all pending final results. Joe Dirt crosses the line tonight with 299 points in the championship, putting him P2, trailing by 10 points behind Dill Destroyer. Spectre01 up to P3 in the championship with 278 points. And Tactical Nuclear Pingu, P4 in the championship with 252 points. So, folks, I think that about wraps it up. One moment. All right. Sorry, getting ducks in a row here. But, folks, that's all she wrote. Gonna try to get through this spiel. Here we go. And with that, the checkered flag falls here at Mount Panorama, and it also falls on the Can-Am Summer Endurance Series presented by Wasabi and Ginger Dental Products. What a season it's been. 6 rounds, 2 classes, and a championship that has taken us from Donington through the Nürburgring, Kyalami, Imola, and Londrina before bringing us here to one of the most intimidating racetracks in the world at Bathurst. In GT3, the story ultimately belongs to Nikita. Consistency, outright speed, and victories when they mattered most. And tonight, with the championship on the line, he did exactly what champions do. Went out and dominated the race. Ben Grabo fought all season long, but at the end of 6 rounds, Nikita is your Can-Am SimSport Summer Endurance Series GT3 champion. And GT4 gave us drama right down to the final laps. Dill Destroyer and Joe Dirt coming into Bathurst separated by just 9 points. Joe putting it on the pole, and for portions of this race, the championship was swinging back and forth with virtually every position. But when everything finally settled, Dill Destroyer brought it home in class, 1 position ahead of Joe, enough to finish the job. Dill Destroyer leaves tonight as your Summer Endurance Series GT4 champion. Congratulations to both of our champions. Congratulations to all of tonight's winners and finishers, and a huge thank you to everybody at Can-Am SimSport, to Wasabi and Ginger Dental Products, and most importantly to everybody who joined us here on the broadcasts throughout the season. But don't go too far, because while that championship ends tonight, we've got good news for all of you guys that love racing. Another one begins next week. Next Tuesday night, September 1st at 9 p.m. Eastern, we trade the GT cars and Can-Am SimSport for something very different. The Formula V10, The Formula V10 Championship with America's Racing League will get underway next week at Imola. A new series, new season, and a whole different kind of race car. Formula V10, America's Racing League, next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Until then, from Mount Panorama and the season finale of the CAS Summer Endurance Series, thanks for joining us. Congratulations to Nikita and Dill Destroyer, and good night from Bathurst. Take care, everybody, and I will see you in the next one.